Oh, Colin. Oh, Spikepit. Like the mighty kings of old, you have wrestled with the dark visions presented before you in the Palantir. And you have mastered those dark forces, turning them to your will, not submitting to the will of the Dark Lord out there in the lands of shadow. You have wrought light where there was only darkness, brought understanding where before there was only chaos. You are the transition to the new age.
Hey, Colin, it's Kevin calling you from the Red Caps podcast. I'm enjoying all these re-released episodes and was wondering if you've done or if you've put any thought at any point in time into maybe doing an anthology or greatest hits or whatever you would like to call it of your favorite episodes from the 400 plus amazing catalog that you have. In terms of like, you could either re-release them as a one long episode of several episodes put together, or just as a single episode where you're like, hey, I really enjoyed episode 310, 52, and what have you, and just point people towards those episodes of ones that you think um, really stand out to you or are memorable to you for whatever reason. I think that'd be an interesting view into the large catalog you have. Anyhow, just an idea. Keep up the great work. I'll keep listening. Take care.
I just found your podcast today thanks to checking out entries for RPG A Day 2021. It's always great for me to hear new voices or read new words or whatever in response to the prompts that Dave and I have selected. Very sorry to hear that last year was a trauma, but obviously you're in fine form because this episode was a lot of fun to listen to and certainly evoked a lot of familiar feelings about poring over those precious early products. Anyway, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the month if you can.
Talking about Dungeon Magazine brings back loads of nostalgia for me. I have 3 boxes worth of old dungeons, and I've looked through them, and some are more beat up than others. The ones I bought more recently to fill in the collection are in better shape, oddly, but I used the crap out of them. There are some, especially in AD&D First Edition, and then surprisingly, not so much for Second, but instead for 3.5 or 3.5. There are some that are very cool and memorable. And I know off the top of my head, the most memorable adventure was in 3.5. And this was Tears for Twilight Hollow, because it was such a focal point and a turning point in our D&D 3 campaign. There's some earlier ones that I cannot think of right now. But, the one that comes to mind also, the one that comes to mind, actually I've never played, is Empire of the Ghouls, which is in an older AD&D dungeon, and it was very reminiscent of the D1 and 2, Descent into the Depths, and Vault of the Shrine of the Kuatoa, and of course Vault of the Drow in D3, and Night Below campaign. Actually, it was a really neat 2-parter, I think, that was in the older dungeon magazines, and was Wolfgang Bauer's introduction of the intelligent ghouls, a la Call of Cthulhu ghouls that had an empire, and he's brought that into Midgard now, which is a pretty neat concept, I think. So, of the ones that I played in the old First Edition, it's been so long, and they were always incorporated into our main campaign, so oh well. So I think, when TSR had it, and then I guess Wizards got hold of it. I think Paizo had it for there towards the end until Wizards took it back with the beginning of 4th edition. But Paizo, even towards the end, had some great adventure paths. The Shackled City, the Savage Tide, the Age of Worms, which were all really cool serial type of products. They had stuff in there for Eberron way back in 2nd edition. They had little adventures for Oriental Adventures and for Al-Qadim. So it was pretty cool, like what they gave, and it was a supplement to all the, because this came out bi-monthly, and we'd have to wait years for new actual official products. So the dungeons were a great supplement to continue your campaign when you didn't have a lot of prep time.
Hey, Colin, Jason here. I often hear about the method of having players create their characters, their backgrounds, and then trying to tie those into the world. And I'm not poo-pooing that, but your idea there of doing kind of the around the table and getting all the different flavor in there for every player sounds like a really great way to build a world. So it's not just the GM's vision of the world, but there's something in there from everybody, which helps keeps everybody engaged. So great episode. The audio, by the way, is totally fine. Mind you, I do guerrilla podcasting off just my phone all the time, so I may not be the best judge. But honestly, I think the audio is perfectly fine. I wouldn't worry about it, man. Keep up the great work, and talk to you soon.
Yo, Colin, dude, I hear you about how important flavor is and how it's, it's kind of weird we don't talk about it that much because we each have our own personal flavor that we like. But, it's good to try out other stuff, too. Anyway, yeah, I'm right there with you as well on the Session Zero collaborative world building thing. And I was just thinking we could get rid of the whole concept of Session Zero and just make the collaborative world building and the expectation setting and all of that stuff just the first session. Everyone gets together, you have fun, you game it out, and yeah, you do it. Because what I really want to do before the next campaign I run is what you were talking about, something I've always wanted to do, is use Microscope to build the world and then kingdoms to build the little kingdom. I've never done it, I've heard about it, I've always wanted to, so I'm gonna. Peace out.
Now I'm going to mention something. You may not want to play this message, and that's okay if you don't. I'm going to apologize for all the noise in the background. Anyhow, so you may not want to include this message, and that's okay if you don't. But I wonder if going back and tinkering with our old episodes, as I pass a police officer talking into my phone, which I shouldn't be doing. I don't know if he's going to turn around or not. We'll see. But if so, we'll have a live recording of me getting ticket. But point being, as far as going back and tinkering with old episodes, why are we obsessed with the past? Why can't we just forget it and move on? Is that because we're worried about our legacy? The way Thomas Jefferson and George Washington very carefully crafted their memoirs and edited them so what they wrote could not, would show them in a better light? I don't know. So I don't know. So I know you're not just editing your old podcasts because you're worried about your legacy. Well, maybe you are worried about your legacy, but I know it's not totally selfish in your desire because you're worried about new listeners. And when somebody new comes to the podcast, you're interested in presenting them something palatable and attractive. So I think there is a customer service aspect to your wanting to edit and fine tune your older episodes. But I do wonder about this idea of changing the past and curating the past separate from your desire for new listeners to hear something good. Why do we have that drive to fix the past and show ourselves in a better light, I wonder. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyhow, talk to you later.
Hey, Colin, Carl here. Every time Arlen or someone mentions Beyond the Wall, I don't think of that Beyond the Wall product you talk about. I think of the Pendragon product Beyond the Wall, which talks about the land beyond Hadrian's Wall in the time of Arthur and the Pict land, I guess, or the land of the wild Picts and King Lot and Lothian and all those machinations from up there in Mallory. So I don't know that product, but I think when I think of wilderness, I think of forbidden lands, and I have the products, and they have this map, and you're supposed to explore it and do the hex crawling, but I've never done it, so I don't know if you have any experience with that or know anyone. And it does definitely sound interesting, and I might give it a go one of these days.
Hey Colin, the Pink Phantom here. I want to say I agree with you 100% about not referring to the knowledge that our distant ancestors had as primitive technology. I mean, I guess we could use Stone Age technology for those really far back, and they did some amazing things in stone, both on the small scale with the small tools that they used as knives and specialized tools, and also, building monoliths. I mean, they built with stone and they built with stone to last. So I think calling it primitive technology is just kind of giving them the old shove aside. And even though Stone Age kind of has some of that connotation, I think it at least gives a better indication of what they were actually doing back then, just working with stone like the experts they were.
Hey Colin, Spencer here. I just wanted to say I've really been enjoying the recent output. Those episodes are coming thick and fast, but it's all good stuff. Really enjoyed listening to you, so infused by how the teaching's going. That has been fantastic to hear. Really, really good stuff. Sorry to hear that you've got COVID, but it seems to me we're at a stage where we're the only way we're going to get past this is by us all coming into contact with it. So, there's that. But hope you get well soon, mate. And I'm just about to sit down and listen to your thoughts on Nave, which I'm very much looking forward to. Take care, mate. Speak soon. Bye.
Yo, Colin, dude, so I had to call because you're the only person I know other than me that's read Moonwalking with Einstein, and that got me super pumped up. I loved that book. I just found it fascinating, man. All that stuff with memory is just, it's so cool. The brain is just such an interesting organ that we don't know that much about, and we're learning more every day. I just watched this video on the 60 Symbols YouTube channel, which is a fantastic channel. It's a bunch of UK dudes talking about science and stuff from like the University of Nottingham, and the host was at a new facility showing off this new machine that they have to image brains, and it was just so cool. It used these magnets and electromagnetism. It was really cool. Also, Freakonomics is a fun book. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, man. Get well soon. Peace out.
Hey, Colin, Jason here. Great overview of the Tomb of the Serpent King. I'm not sure if this is a recycled episode. I don't think it is. I ran it using ICRPG. I converted it to ICRPG maybe 5 years ago. I don't know. It was 2017 maybe. It was maybe a year before I joined the Audio Dungeon. But yeah, it's a great dungeon, a great learning thing, and everybody should check it out because there's lessons to be learned there. And like you, I love design notes. So talk to you later.
Hey, Spike, Lonely Adventurer here. Long time no call-in. Heck, long time no podcast from me either. It's been an eventful year on my side, and I just haven't had the time or the energy for it. But nothing bad, all good. Just life's taking me in a different direction for a little while. But I'm still gaming, and I'm still designing, and still really kind of quietly lurking on the Anchor podcast, enjoying listening to all of them. I'm super excited that you ran Tomb of the Serpent Kings. This was actually the first OSR dungeon that I ran about 2 years ago now, maybe even 3. And yeah, I had a really good time with it. I'm kind of eager to find another group who wants to play through it again. I think I would do a better job this time, but it was, like I said, my introduction to OSR and the first time I played basic D&D. I'm running out of time, so this will be message number 1. You're definitely right about that particular trap that is a bit on the deadly side early on in the dungeon. I had used it to I'd use an opening scenario where my players were hunting goblins down and found the tomb by accident, and one of the goblins got away, and it triggered the trap before they could catch it. And though they didn't see what happened, they saw the results of what happened, and the trap had been reset. So I think, and I've heard other advice to kind of really foreshadow that one in some way or another to avoid a fatality there. But yeah, just a great dungeon. I don't like snakes, so I swapped out a lot of stuff, and I think we used regular goblins, and I added a whole dungeon to the side dungeon onto it to really expand on them. But really enjoyed it. I'm running out of time again. Anyway, really enjoyed the episode. Glad you enjoyed Tomb of the Serpent Kings, and hopefully we'll talk online soon. Have a great one.
Hello, Colin. Just Safer here. I just want to say what a great podcast your 453 Into the Pit was. Absolutely chock-a-block, mate. Fantastic. Loved it. Like an encyclopedic diary journal episode, and yet none of it rambling. Just full of good stuff. So much to comment on. I haven't got much time. So yeah, I love your Curse of Strahd campaign, mate. I love the dynamic between you and your family, the energy, the familiarity, the level of comfort in there. It just creates a great vibe and atmosphere. I love it. Real role playing, mate. Yeah, Heart of Darkness. I never got through it, mate. Really stodgy stuff. Couldn't get to the end. And yeah, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Yeah, man, I feel you about being in a rut, man. You've encouraged me, mate. You know, I'm going to go and do something. Just one thing, just one simple thing. I'm going to do it now. Don't know if it's going to be sculpting or drawn or writing. Where's my pencil? I'm going to do it now. Cheers, Colin.
Hey Colin, this is Menion, also known as Rob here. So thank you so much for the mention, and I just wanted to say that I've recently been really enjoying your discussions about the teaching, and it's really helped me in some ways. So it's good to see other people doing well and trying something new, and it's quite heartening. So I just wanted to mention that. I did even look up about teacher training in the UK, but that's not something really I would ever be able to do now. But it just sounds fantastic. But I'm really, more than that, I think it's great that you're doing something new, and it's obviously something that's exciting you and challenging you. So wow, that's just brilliant. All right. Anyway, keep it up and take care now.
Oh, in other news, it sounds like you've got a bit of a career change, eh? Cutting over to teaching, that's what it sounds like to me. Good on you, man. It's always been a dream of mine, but I haven't actually tried to pull the plug on the corporate world and cut over to the academic. Maybe one day, maybe not. I don't know. So yeah, man, good on you.
Yo, dude, so I heard your message on friggin' BJ's latest episode. That's his name, the Arcane Alienist, talking about the labyrinth he ran, and it got me thinking about, there's a blog that I actually got this really cool idea for how to run mazes off of that I used when I ran Wheeler Woe. It's graphite prints, and it's called like a memory maze or something, and it's all based, I don't know, it's cool, man. I'll send you the link on Discord, but I thought I'd send you this message because I know you don't check Discord very often. So I'm going to shoot you a link on Discord and check it out and see if that might be something that tickles your fancy. It's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I'm going to do that now. Bye.
Was I summoned? I heard my name and slides. Yeah, again, I'm gonna push for this being a good way to convey information. There is a reason that the business community loves PowerPoint. It is an easy way for you to organize information. It's note cards that you can share with your audience. So there's many great uses in RPGs. I like the idea of chopping up little bits of dungeon and putting it on there. Some of the better laid out dungeons have a zoomed in picture of what's on that page, and you could even move those in there and say, you're in this area of the dungeon, what are you guys doing? Love the idea for popping it up for monsters. I haven't been using it lately. I've been on Foundry because my game went online, and I'm using that in a similar sort of way to pop up pictures and stuff. But my next campaign, I'm trying to figure out a way where I can make an interactive map that everybody can click on, because we're not going to be using it for combat as much because we're not playing 5e.
Hey, Spikepit, me again. Plant monsters. Dude, perfect timing. I recently learned about two of the world's largest organisms that both happen to be plants. So the world's largest organism by weight, it's known as Pandu, and it's this collection of, I believe, aspen trees in Northern California, I think. It's all a single organism, but it's a whole forest of aspen trees and other stuff, but it's one single organism they've figured out through science. I don't know the math or the science behind it. The other one, the largest organism by area, I guess, is this seagrass found off the coast of Australia that they've recently discovered. It clones itself. It's this one huge organism of seagrass that's just massive. And these are just crazy organisms, right? And it flowers and it fruits and it's a seagrass and it's crazy. Anyway, man, plant monsters rule. Peace out.
Hi, Colin. I've left the kitchen, living room, dining room to leave you some messages because my son, who's just about to go off and get essentially his GCSE results today, is just started tucking into his breakfast, and that sometimes, especially when he's got his headphones on, which he has, does sound a bit like a construction site. So it's better, it's best for everyone if I leave the room. Oh yes, yeah, there are a few reasons to ring, to call, to leave a message. What I'm doing now. First one is the school groups, basically. A couple of little thoughts on school groups.
Hi Colin, hope you're doing well. Goblin's Henchman here. So you're asking about games for kids. I mean, I don't know, actually, but my instincts tell me that you want to go 5e. I think that brand name appeal will bring in the punters, as it were. And then, maybe after that, maybe segue to something else. I mean, it sounds like your issue with 5e is that you've had enough of it, and fair enough. But I reckon if you put posters around school saying D&D club, you'll get takers. If you put posters up saying RPG club or Beyond the Wall or something else, you might not get a broad appeal. But maybe you don't want too big a group, so maybe that's the thing. I'm almost sure that Che did something similar, put D&D up, and he got people coming in, whereas before he didn't. I may be misremembering that. But anyway, that's my shillings worth, as it were.
Hey Colin, it's Kevin calling in from the Red Caps podcast. Just wanted to say I really, really enjoyed hearing you talking about your mentor teacher, Miss M. I thought that was incredibly awesome to hear, and I really hope you share that with her. Send her that episode. I'm sure it would make her day, week, etc. And I also wish you the very best of luck in your upcoming adventures in being the man, the myth, the legend in the classroom, and going from there. So, again, just wanted to comment on how inspiring and really awesome it was to hear how you described your interactions with her and the impact she had on your life. And here's hoping that you have similar impacts on the kids that you'll be teaching. Take care.
Hey Colin, it's your old Budsky Joe from across the pond. Hey, I was just listening to your most recent episodes, and I never stopped listening. But it occurred to me that I haven't really called in for quite a long time, too long in fact. So I'm calling, just saying that you are, maintain it, dude. You're doing a great job. I'm still listening. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Yeah. So I think your game club sounds amazing. I really hope it takes off. But I also feel your kind of pain, man, because I think it's kind of like an 80s thing. Like growing up back then, it was kind of a stigma, right, if you play D&D or whatever. And I don't really tell people that I play D&D, like very rarely. Maybe I guess after I get to know them. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, and it's kind of, like a silly psychological thing, I guess. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm running out of time. Cheers, buddy.
And finally, Spelljammer, man. I would love to play Spelljammer with you, Colin, and introduce you to it. Spelljammer is, I think that the original idea behind Spelljammer was for it to let D&D emulate the sort of fantasy you would expect from Jules Verne. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, First Man on the Moon. Did Verne write that? Or was that? Anyway, but you get what I'm talking about. If you look at the old artwork from the original Spelljammer, there was a lot of, polished wood and brass fixings, and it just had a very that sort of not even pulp fantasy, the pre-pulp fantasy, the classic science fiction work, and it almost has, today that a lot of that kind of imagery would be used in steampunk, but it wasn't used as steampunk. It was still D&D. It was all based on arcane magic, and they created a version of space for Dungeons and Dragons. It would much more some more older ideas about the construction of the universe with crystal spheres floating in the phlogiston, and much more of a Ptolemaic view of cosmology. And then you add in these sort of weirdly fantastical, ships that are probably much more look, at least, and have the feel of much more of a 19th century type of fantasy or science fiction. And of course, you're using the D&D rule set and D&D races and monsters and creatures to run it. So that's what I like about it. At this point, it's almost like a retrofuturism vibe, maybe, with a sort of a non scientific view of space and the cosmos, and how you would explore it, or an alternative, how you'd use it using D&D style magic. As far as I can tell from looking at the preview material, and they've got Legends of the Multiverse, which is a live play that they've been doing on YouTube to kind of gear up for it. The major change I've seen they've made is that they've sort of planted it in the classic D&D sort of view of the cosmos. So instead of there being this phlogiston, which doesn't appear that you can sail in, when you get out of a planetary or a solar system, which used to be a crystal sphere, now it's just those systems, those worlds of D&D kind of exist. They have space around them called wild space. That's just empty space. But once you cross it, you don't have to penetrate a crystal sphere and get into this phlogiston substance. If you go out far enough in space, eventually you hit the astral plane, the astral sea, and then you're sailing on the astral sea.
Hey, Spikepit, this is kind of a call towards BJ's lauding over Spelljammer. I do like Spelljammer, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun with it back when it came out in 89, 90, but definitely it is derivative of a product, although they did add, of course, fantasy monsters and the cosmology that more fits the TSR D&D world, right? But Space 1889 came out a year earlier by GDW, and it was totally, phlogiston-based ships and the like. So, but Spelljammer tweaked it for a fantasy setting, and I don't really see that Space 1889 was super popular, but there's definitely floating ships, and it came out a year earlier. So, and there's probably some crosstalk and crossover between designers from GDW and TSR anyway, right? The cool thing about Space 1889 is there is a more recent rule set than the GW task system developed back in 1988, and they've redone it for Ubiquity system, which would please Anthony, and he's probably played it, and Jason Connerly, who's been on a Ubiquity kick, or was about a month ago, and now is all about the Westerns and Aces and Eights and the like. So yeah, it uses the Ubiquity system now, which would be kind of neat to do. I think I got everything on like some sort of bundle of holding or humble bundle or whatever. So pretty neat. There was that game and Cadillacs and Dinosaurs way back that kind of were neat. An appeal to me, games that I always liked but never picked up because, well, we were playing Twilight 2000 or Merc 2000. So.
Hey, Colin. It's Anthony calling from Asia, but really calling from the car. It seems like the only place I exist now is in the car. Calling in with thoughts about the high-rise aspect to cyberpunk and whatnot, and I think it's really interesting and compelling. A few years ago, we were experimenting with Powered by the Apocalypse, to see if it was a good mesh for how we play, and we picked a game called The Veil, which was I think the second cyberpunk game for PBTA stuff. And as we developed the setting kind of collaboratively, I noticed that this aspect, this high-rise aspect, that the layers of poverty gradually thin and then become an ever more rarefied layer of wealth stacked on top. And I was kind of curious where exactly this had come from. It was a group that hadn't played together before, really. We hadn't done any cyberpunk before, really, and we had a blank slate. We could have done anything, but this notion was one that came forward as an underpinning structure, and I found it really interesting. Where did it come from? And I felt that part of it was inspired by where I live. In Korea, there's very, very little land that's available for housing, and so housing is inevitably pushed up into the sky, and of course the type of apartment you live in is a contributing factor to your social status and of course your comfort. But where else had it come from? And it occurred to me later during play that it came from Harry Harrison's novel Make Room, Make Room, which in a sense was transformed into Soylent Green. And while not a precise low to high rise kind of environment, or not so dramatic as maybe that Matt Damon film Elysium makes it, with the very richest living and satellites in orbit and the very poorest left to inherit the earth, that distinction, that very clear poor live here, rich live here, and it's almost like two separate societies stacked on top of each other. That's made abundantly clear in Make Room, Make Room, and kind of an unflinching bleakness, of course focusing in on the lower strata of society. But anyway, that's what you made me think of.
Hey, Colin, this is Carl calling in. When I think of high rises, I think of Warhammer 40K and the hives that exist in these mega cities on these planets. And what I loved in the 40K role-playing game, mainly art, is how they showed them, the cross-sectional view and how massive they were, how they went underground, and the different layers. I guess it's also reminiscent and harkens to Sharn, the City of Towers in Eberron, which I love to play, and all the stratification based on where you live. The higher, the better. There's even houses in the clouds, as it were, compared to the scum underneath and the underbelly. So, pretty interesting places, these sort of towered cities to roleplay in.
Hey, Colin, Jason here, enjoying this resurgence in regular podcasting from you. 2 comments. Wow factor. So I don't know if you listen to or you have a chance to, they're kind of long episodes, but there's a podcast called Frankenstein's RPG where they take bits, they argue about what are the best bits and bobs from different systems and are trying to put them together to make not a universal, but make the best system. This season, they're doing sci-fi games. And one of the things they decided at the beginning they needed to have in sci-fi games was the wow factor. So I do think there's a lot to that wow factor. And having that wow factor, something that rocks players back and knocks them out of their socks, is a big part of making that session memorable and enjoyable and really keeping people coming back to a game. So I think there's a lot to the wow factor. And as far as Rule 3, I need to leave another message.
Hey, Colin, I just wanted to thank you for that last episode. Wonderful list of settings there. Lots of childhood memories, particularly Wind in the Willows. That was something I was obsessed with for a brief while as a kid. I always thought of myself as a bit of a ratty. Absolutely loved that setting, that world. Where does Mr. Ben live? Firstly, I thought, it's Acacia Avenue, isn't it? Turns out that's not true. That's some kind of a cliche placeholder name that I wasn't aware of for any kind of suburban setting. What was the answer? Oh, yeah, Festive Road, 52 Festive Road to be exact, which is in Putney. News to me. Thanks, Google.
Oh, Colin, that was a real deep-cut combo, that, mate. Jamie and the Magic Torch, Ivo the Engine and Mr. Ben. Oh, hey. I haven't thought about Jamie and the Magic Torch for over 40 years, mate. Wow, that was a real sucked it to me, that one. Really took me back. But yeah, as a bit of a return, forehand smash over the net. Perhaps, have you heard of Mary Mungo and Midge? Can you remember that one? I don't know, that one might be a bit before your time. But, yeah, thanks for that, Colin. Mr. Ben, my one and only attempt at GMing over online was in a game with Barney in his League of Eternal Guardians game. And I started the game in a changing room in the league. And I had the doors on the changing room a green colour as a homage to Mr. Ben. Not the best idea, not the best place to start an adventure, mate. But take care, all the best.
Yo, Colin. So I just want to call and thank you for a couple things. One, thank you for inspiring Safer to get up on the mic and send you a message. I love hearing from that dude. Whenever I hear him, I always get excited. So Safer, put out another episode, dude. No, just kidding. But it's always nice to hear from you. Two, I also want to thank you for reminding me of Danger Mouse, man. I loved that show as a little kid. I haven't thought about it in a long time, and yeah, man, Danger Mouse was really, really cool. It was one of the few, probably like British shows that were over here when I was a kid. So, yeah, man, Danger Mouse kicked ass. And also, to let you know, I hear you, dude. I don't really fit in with the 5e crowd. I don't really fit in with the OSR crowd. Hell, I don't really even fit in with the Pathfinder crowd, man. So, yet here we are, right? Anyway, dude, you're awesome. Peace out.
Hey, Colin, this is Jim Tripp. I enjoyed the episode with a bunch of call-ins as much as your regular episodes. One of the callers that I really did like had asked a question about, or threw forth some suggestions about having a rotating leader, which I really liked. What I've been experimenting with different ways of getting players to be leaders is, rotating. I haven't tried that. Sounds great. The one of them that I've been using recently has been asking at the beginning of the session, like, who here knows about constellations? And then if somebody steps forward and says, oh yeah, my character has a background in that, that kind of indicates to me, the DM, that they want to kind of lead this episode. So then I'll ask them, okay, there's a shooting star that passed through this constellation. What does that mean? And then that, again, just kind of a way at the beginning of the session to see, get a gauge of who's interested in being a leader that week. And then I'll start to just kind of defer to them. And if nobody steps forward, I'll just have an NPC.
Reference 488. I hope Rayotis does hear that and calls in with his thoughts of rules light versus rules medium games for long-term play, and whether one of the lighter games has the legs for a long-term campaign. I'm genuinely interested in his opinion.
Hey there, it's Kevin calling in from the Red Caps. Hopefully you don't mind me playing along with RPG a Day, or at least this one particular entry anyway, with you rather than doing it on my podcast. But the answer for what is the perfect game, for me, that's not a rule set. It's not anything like that. A perfect game is a situation where everybody that you're playing with clicks with what's going on. Everybody has that shared imagination, that shared memory, that you walk away from the table at the end of that session and everybody has it in their head like it really happened to them. And when they're talking about it years later, they're like, do you remember when you did this? Not when your character did this, when you did this. And everybody's bought into that shared collective memory, and it feels like they were there doing the actions in the game. That's the perfect game. I hope everybody gets that feeling at least once. Anyhow, keep up the great work.